Diversion of floodwaters. CP's role in Daqing River breach raises questions. Mekong Drought. China uses dams to control Southeast Asian economy. Is it useless for Beijing to spend $143 billion to save the chip industry? Experts reveal the dilemma. Mainland population expert. China is already one of the countries with the lowest fertility rate. Former Vice President of China Everbright Bank Zhang, Huayu sentenced to 12.5 years in prison for rare charge. The CCP is in crisis. Xi Jinping is still plotting in Beidaihe after 11 days of invisibility. All will be covered today in China Undercover. Diversion of floodwaters. CP's role in Daqing River breach raises questions. On the morning of August 10th, the dike in the upstream section of the Daqing River in the North Bank Tanli town burst, causing the floodwaters to rush down and instantly cover the area. At the same time, the water level of the flood in the downstream section of the Daqing River in Tianjin Taitu town decreased. Netizens questioned whether the Chinese Communist Party intentionally released floodwaters in the upstream North Village to protect Tianjin City. In a video, a truck was driving on the road, which was already flooded. The driver lamented, "It's over-submerged." Meanwhile, the water level of the flood in Tianjin's Jingtai district downstream of the Daqing River clearly decreased. On the 10th, according to a report by China Youth Daily, the water level of the Daqing River dropped noticeably that morning, and some rescue teams were gradually withdrawing from the area. Taitu Town is adjacent to Huayu Town to the south and Tanli Township in Winning County, Hebei Province, to the west. A man from Taitu Town released a video on the 10th, saying that around 4 o'clock that morning, the dam in the Daqing River section of Anlaitun, Hebei Province, burst. The flood was surging towards Taitu Town, but the dam had been reinforced and heightened, and now not a drop of water has entered. A netizen commented, "The water level dropped because of the breach upstream." "You've dropped and now you've all come to the North Bank," someone else said in the comments. According to Northern Net, due to the flood, more than 6,000 villagers from Beidaihe village and Nanshutou village in Huayu Town, Tianjin, and Dundai village have been urgently relocated. The Chinese Communist Party has repeatedly diverted floodwaters into Hebei Province in order to protect Beijing, Yongjian, Tianjin. This has led to severe flooding in places like Zhuhu and Bezhou in Hebei Province, resulting in significant casualties and property damage. Many people have lost their homes and loved ones. Currently, Tianjin, located at the mouth of the floodwaters, is facing challenges. According to a report by official Chinese media on August 9th, Tianjin, known as the outlet of the Nine Rivers, is responsible for 75% of the flood discharge in the Heiqi River Basin. Since the start of the flood season, water levels in rivers such as the Yangding River, Daqing River, and Dulayujian River have risen rapidly, making the flood control situation in Tianjin extremely severe. On the 7th, the Central Theater Command set up a joint command post along the front line of the Daqing River in Tianjin, coordinating the relief efforts of the military, Tianjin Garrison, armed police forces, and militia units for disaster relief in Tianjin. Political commentator Yu Shan told the press on August 10th that the CCP has now announced the establishment of a forward command post in Tianjin, which seems to be mainly for strengthening stability maintenance. This is largely because citizens in various places have previously stopped breaches and engaged in protests, which requires sending troops to prevent civil unrest. Another key reason is maintaining secrecy to cover up a large number of deaths. The military has mechanisms and facilities for rapidly dealing with bodies. Mekong Drought. China uses dams to control Southeast Asian economy. The Mekong River, the longest river in Southeast Asia, is facing severe water shortages. The series of Chinese dams on the upper reaches of the Mekong River, Daqing River, exacerbating the severe drought downstream this year, further deteriorating the economies of Southeast Asian countries. Experts believe that the dams have become a de facto weapon for the Chinese Communist Party to control Southeast Asia, seriously damaging and threatening the region's ecology and livelihoods. Brian Eiler, senior researcher and director of the Southeast Asia program at the Stimson Center, stated in a speech after the recent Mekong River event held in Washington, "Climate indicators indicate that the Mekong River is experiencing severe drought. He also pointed out that the 11 dams in China's upper reaches Daqing River would worsen the drought conditions in the Mekong River basin. By the end of December 2020, the CCP had constructed 12 giant dams on the mainstem of the Daqing River. The Eye on Earth website stated 11, and Huayu, a well-known hydropower expert living in Germany, said they forgot about the Guduo hydropower station on the Zhang River in Tibet. In addition to these 12 operational reservoirs, there are 8 under construction. Furthermore, there are 85 dams on over 100 tributaries of the Daqing River. 2020 marked the driest year on record for the Mekong River. Monitoring results from the Mekong Dam Monitor indicated that while upstream Chinese reservoirs had sufficient water during the rainy season, some riverbeds downstream of the Mekong River experienced cracks. The Mekong Dam Monitor has also confirmed that the 2 largest dams on the Daqing River, Xiaowan Dam in Yunnan and Nuoshadu Dam, retained 20.1 billion cubic meters of water during the rainy season. These 2 dams alone control over 50 of the total reservoir storage capacity for the mainstream of the Mekong River. As early as 2010, member states of the Mekong River Commission, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, raised negotiations with the CCCP due to a significant drop in the Mekong River's water level, causing downstream droughts. They believed that the dams on the Daqing River were causing the droughts. Scientists warn that several dams on the Daqing River could trap 97% of sediment flowing to the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. Dams as strategic weapons for CCP control as of today. The CCP has never publicly disclosed the sediment and hydrological data of the upstream dams. The MRC has always been open, but the CCP has not joined. China's dams often release water or limit water without warning, causing harm to downstream countries. The CCP later agreed to notify the downstream countries 5 days in advance of limiting or releasing water from upstream dams, but this is not always followed. For instance, on January 5, 2021, the Jinping hydroelectric station in Jinhong, China, informed downstream countries that it would limit water for 20 days, 5 days after cutting off water. At that time, the water level of the Mekong River had dropped by over a meter, affecting river navigation and fish growth. Some Chinese scholars, including hydropower expert Wang Weiluo, have pointed out that dams have become a strategic weapon for the CCP to control Southeast Asia. For the CCP, controlling the water tap of the upper river gives it significant political leverage to influence half of the ASEAN countries. Is it useless for Beijing to spend $143 billion to save the chip industry? Experts reveal the dilemma. China is investing heavily to support its semiconductor industry. According to statistics, there are currently 9 countries providing subsidies to the semiconductor sector, with China leading the way by committing a substantial $143 billion. However, a noteworthy trend is the apparent challenges faced by mainland China's iQuin design development. Recently, companies such as Zeekr Technology under Oppo and Starrise Meizu under Geely Group have struggled discontinuing their self-developed chip businesses. Starrise Meizu, in particular, shut down after just 5 months of operation. According to a report from eTimes, 9 countries are providing subsidies for the semiconductor industry. China is considering a $143 billion subsidy for its domestic chip sector, making it the largest contributor. The United States follows with $52.07 billion allocated under the CHIPS Act to support semiconductor research, manufacturing, and workforce development. Other countries include the European Union with a $47 billion subsidy, Singapore with an estimated $19 billion, and reports of at least $6.05 billion in subsidies from the Japanese government. More recently, the United Kingdom and India have entered the fray, offering $1.05 billion and $922, respectively. The subsidy scale from South Korea and Malaysia is not yet known. However, the development of the semiconductor industry in mainland China still faces challenges. For example, Oppo, a major smartphone manufacturer, established the IC design company Zeekr Technology in 2019, but abruptly terminated its self-developed chip business on May 12 this year, leaving 3,000 employees jobless. Similarly, Starrise Meizu, a subsidiary of Geely Group, was founded on March 28 this year, but recently announced the discontinuation of its chip development business. This marks the second Chinese smartphone-related company to halt self-developed chip operations this year, following in the footsteps of Oppo. However, while Oppo's endeavor lasted almost 4 years, Starrise Meizu's chip development team existed for less than half a year. Mainland population expert. China is already one of the countries with the lowest fertility rate due to the previous strict birth control by the Chinese Communist Party, coupled with the distorted economic development leading to extreme inequality. Young people are finding it increasingly difficult to survive. Unemployment rates are rising, and many young people are choosing to adopt a lying flat attitude, avoiding marriage and childbirth. As a result, China's population is experiencing negative growth, and the vice president of the Chinese Population Association stated that China now has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. Internet users responded with comments like, "Keep striving for first place." Yuan Exin, vice president of the Chinese Population Association and professor at Nankai University School of Economics, mentioned that China has become one of the countries with the lowest birth rates globally, and the trend of negative population growth will continue into the 2070s. Yuan Xin analyzed data from the 7th National Population Census, showing that in 2020, the population of children ages 0 to 14 was 253 million, while the population of individuals aged 60 and above was 264 million. The elderly population surpassed the youth population, which marks a shift in China from supporting the young to supporting the elderly, and the burden of elderly care is becoming heavier. Yuan Zhen also stated that by 2073, the elderly dependency ratio will reach 102, meaning there will be 102 elderly individuals for every 100 working-age individuals. In response to these concerning population statistics, comments in the online community mostly saying when there's no way to retreat, everyone uses their reproductive rights to resist, expressing their dissatisfaction humorously. They noted that the demographic dividend has always been a national dividend, but in detail, more people mean more competition and negative consequences for individuals. In May of this year, there were multiple topics on China's Mainland GQ platform discussing birth rates, including why are young people unwilling to get married, and why are young people unwilling to have children. One of the questions was, why doesn't anyone want to have children nowadays? The most upvoted response said, better both lose than let one side win. Look at those with children who have set a good example, spending 25 years and $1 million to raise a child, only for them to become a 996 worker for 30 years and a slave to their house for 35 years. They might even lose their job at 35. You can only say that today's birth rate matches today's housing prices. Former Vice President of China Everbright Bank Zhang Huayu sentenced to 12.5 years in prison for rare charge. Zhang Huayu, the former Deputy Secretary of the Party Committee and Vice President of China Everbright Bank Company Limited, has been sentenced to 12.5 years in prison for taking bribes totaling over 14.65 million yuan. Zhang Huayu was charged with offenses including evading resignation. According to mainland media, on August 11th, the Intermediate People's Court of Hez City in Shandong Province publicly announced its verdict, sentencing Zhang Huayu to a total of 12 years and 6 months in prison for the crimes of bribery and using influence to accept bribes, along with a fine of 1.3 million yuan. In detail, for the crime of accepting bribes, Zhang was sentenced to 10 years and 6 months in prison and fined 800,000 yuan. For the crime of using influence to accept bribes, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison and fined 500,000 yuan. The combined sentence was determined to be 12 years and 6 months in prison. The court found that from February 2001 to September 2021, Zhang Huayu, taking advantage of his positions as vice president of the business department of the head office of China Everbright Bank, provided assistance to relevant organizations or individuals in coordinating loans, business expansion and employment, and illegally accepted a total of 7.736271 million yuan in bribes. Additionally, from January 2019 to November 2021, he used his authority and influence to provide assistance in coordinating loans, adjusting corporate credit ratings, and employment, and illegally accepted bribes totaling 6.919,536 million yuan. On January 4th of this year, Zhang Huayu was officially announced to be under investigation. Officials stated that after his resignation, Zhang Huayu had received a high salary from businesses with business connections, and he was criticized as a typical case of building a nest in advance and escaping through resignation in corrupt practices. On July 4th, Zhang Huayu, the former Deputy Secretary of the Party Committee and Vice President of China Everbright Bank, was expelled from the party and placed under investigation. The Central Commission for Discipline Inspection stated that Zhang Huayu was accused of colluding with others, obstructing investigations, receiving gifts and money improperly, accepting luxurious trips and high-end banquets, arranging his son, son-in-law, younger brother, and other relatives and their children to work within the China Everbright system, seeking profits through promotions and job transfers, pursuing interests for specific individuals, engaging in profit-making activities, holding shares in non-public companies in violation of regulations, participating in private lending activities, and illegally accepting substantial assets. Zhang Huayu's downfall is just the tip of the iceberg in the larger corruption case involving the China Everbright Group. In recent years, the China Everbright Group has been embroiled in multiple corruption scandals. The CCP is in crisis. Xi Jinping is still plotting in Beidaihe after 11 days of invisibility. Chinese Communist Party Jinping has been absent from public view for 11 consecutive days. There are indications that he and other high-level CCP officials are still in Beidaihe this week, believed to be discussing important matters. Analysts suggest that Xi Jinping is facing multiple domestic and foreign crises, making this year's Beidaihe conference destined to be full of intrigue. Xi Jinping's most recent public appearance was on July 31st, when he awarded the rank of general to newly appointed commander of the rocket force, Wang Hubin, and political commissar of the rocket force, Daqing. China's top leader is currently staying in Beidaihe, a seaside resort, to escape the summer heat, even though northern China is submerged in water. It is reported that in the first half of this year, China's foreign trade exports and the real estate market have been continuously declining, and a large number of newly graduated college students have joined the ranks of the unemployed, exacerbating the already tense employment and economic situation. Additionally, the mysterious disappearance of Foreign Minister Qin Gang, followed by his dismissal in July, as well as changes in the rocket force's leadership and natural and man-made disasters such as floods and water shortages in Beijing, Hebei, and northeastern China, have all become focal points of attention for Chinese society and the international media. Wang Dan, a leader of the 1989 pro-democracy movement, told Voice of America that although the Xi Jinping regime appears to be firmly in power on the surface, it is actually riddled with crises. He believes that economic, domestic, and foreign policy issues would likely be discussed during the Beidaihe conference, but there seems to be no clear solution to address these crises at the moment. Wang Dan also thinks that Xi Jinping's greater concern lies in internal power struggles, stating, for instance, the Qin Gang incident. I guess there should be some conclusions about the Qin Gang incident during this Beidaihe conference. On August 9th, President Biden issued an executive order restricting US technology investments in China. This order will prohibit Americans from investing in certain areas of artificial intelligence, chips, and quantum computing in China. The Financial Times quoted Shi Zhang, a professor of Chinese political economy at the University of California, San Diego, who analyzed that although the Xi Jinping administration is desperately trying to revive the economy, the CCP leadership gathered in Beidaihe is constrained by putting party and state interests above economic growth. Shi Zhang stated, "No one can propose a policy to reduce military, defense, internal security, or spending on large-scale electronic surveillance of the Chinese people." According to Nikkei News, while Xi Jinping may not have more senior figures at the Beidaihe conference, he faces many challenges. This year's secret Beidaihe conference discussions may include topics such as Taiwan unification, worsening economic conditions, and US relations. Shockwave of US technology investment ban on China. Investors worried about more measures to prevent US capital and expertise from aiding China's military modernization and compromising US national security. Biden signed the executive order on August 9th, local time, restricting American investment in certain sensitive technology areas in China. The aim is to prevent US capital and expertise from assisting in the development of technologies that could support China's military modernization. The order limits US companies' investments in China's semiconductor and microelectronics, quantum information technology, and artificial intelligence sectors, and requires US investors to report investments falling within the restricted categories to the Treasury Department. This executive order also requires US legal entities to report to the Treasury Department on specific transactions with entities located in countries of concern or within their jurisdiction, and entities owned by legal entities in countries of concern or activities related to restricted technologies and products. However, traders and analysts suggest that this will not be the end of the U.S.'s efforts to strengthen its investment scrutiny measures towards China. According to readers on August 10th, Chen Wagan, senior partner and head of Greater China at Wilson Sonsini Law Firm, stated that the U.S. Congress may expand the scope of Biden's signed executive order. Certain U.S. investors may choose to wait for the implementation details to be announced before making investment decisions in these covered industries. In fact, Republican members of Congress have criticized the Democratic President Biden's order for not being thorough enough. Michael McCaul, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, issued a written statement giving positive feedback on the measures restricting foreign investment, but also noted that the executive order fails to include existing technology investments as well as concerning sectors like biotechnology and energy. We need to stop the flow of dollars and technology in the direction of supporting the CCP's military and surveillance technology, rather than just seeking compromises that take too long to develop and take effect, said Representative Michael McCaul from Texas. According to Dealogic's data, US companies' acquisitions of Chinese companies have declined by nearly 60 this year, from $8.08 billion in the same period last year to $3.05 billion, and transactions in the technology sector have fallen from $6.01 billion to $815 million. Tensions between the U.S. and China and Beijing's regulatory crackdown on private enterprises have prompted many fund managers to shift their focus away from China or towards domestic investments. For dollar-based funds investing in China's tech industry, the situation is already very bad, said Wayne Xiong, partner at Beijing Huayu Capital. The Biden administration's executive order was issued at a time when Beijing was seeking to attract foreign capital to rejuvenate its slowing economy. Chinese officials from state-backed think tanks have indicated that despite the Biden administration's restrictions, China will maintain an open policy to attract foreign investment. Previously, some US lawmakers accused American investors of transferring capital and valuable proprietary technology to Chinese tech companies that contribute to Beijing's military capabilities. For Beijing, it has been seeking self-sufficiency in the ongoing technology dispute. Regarding Biden's executive order, China's Ministry of Commerce expressed serious concern on August 10th and reserved the right to take countermeasures. And that is today's episode. If you found this video informative, please subscribe and ring a bell to get notification. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. And that is today's episode. If you found this video informative, please subscribe and ring a bell to get notification. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.